Okay, people. Sorry it's still loading kind of crunky. I do have 3 bars, but it's not got the 2 supporting bars before 3. It's just got the 3rd one. When it's a really good signal, all 3 will be brightened up, lit up. So that's kind of, where it's at. Okay. The thing that led up to him seeking his marital counseling, it's kind of poignant. During flooding, he was told to go home and live out the fantasies or fulfill fantasies of his stepdaughter. His stepdaughter from marriage number 2. She had a daughter. Okay, number 1 wife had the son and the daughter. Number 2 wife had the daughter. I'm number 3 wife, and we have a son and one that didn't live. Okay, so whether he had fantasies on his own accord or not, which I don't think he did, but her telling him that he should go home and fulfill fantasies is putting the idea in his head that he has them or had them. Okay? And even after this incident that I'm going to talk about next, maybe I'll talk about it and then hopefully remember that. Okay. So, the daughter of that marriage was kind of popular. It was her lifestyle, that she was like this singing star down around the lake area, ran the music industry circuit, concert circuit for the area. And one of the friends and her would get together at their swimming pool all the time. And they'd be horse playing around with him. Flitting about the house in the swimming suits and bikinis and just trying to get a rise out of him, you know what I mean? Just daring him. Well, he never fell for that. If he'd be in the pool and they decided they'd take a swim, he'd get out. He'd go dress and just sit in front of the TV or something. So that's what was put in his head. I've no indication on paper or from him that action was ever undone. Okay? But the rest of the story is the wife supposedly ended up duct taped to a chair and was able to get free. And the daughter had come out screaming out of her bedroom and saw the mother taped to her chair and got the county sheriff out there and everything. Well, John being a combat vet, there's just certain things we know and we don't do them. The cop did to him that night. came up behind him and touched him. And John reacted, as he had been trained to do. So basically, it's the cop's bad, but the reaction was he slugged a cop, okay? Well, a deputy. Nonetheless, a cop is a cop is a cop. So that's where that went. There is probably more. Oh, he pulled a knife. He pulled a knife to defend his personal perimeter. Had them all backed off. I was going to say there's probably a little more. I just hadn't remembered it yet. But that's what had happened. Then, even to top that off, after we had met, and of course I'd already mentioned that I wouldn't even hold his hand until I saw the divorce papers were signed and it was a done deal, because I don't like to be put in the middle of things like that. I think not only it's gross, I think treachery can arise from that kind of thing. So I never, one time I did, but I was very young, like 13 or 14. And this guy that had been after me, he was 19. For the longest freaking time. And his wife had been one of my good friends. And so we eventually did it, but he wasn't any good, so I don't even count it as anything. It was more like just to make him lay off, you know? Quit breathing down my neck, green teeth. And he was rough. I mean, not during sex, but because they all had judo. It's like a judo crowd in Sedalia at the time. And he flipped me one time. We were at the park, at Centennial Park. And there's this pretty good sized ditch. Or was. I don't know if it's, probably still is, because I think it was a storm drain. And I went over that edge, but he caught me by, like, my wrists and pulled me back up. But I was all scratched up and scraped up from that. I didn't really like him. You know, he was the older guy, and supposed to be woohoo older guy, but he just wasn't my type. I'm glad my friend, even when she heard it after she divorced him, laughed it off and said, you know what? Good for him. And poor you, but good for him. I don't even know why I went there now. It's just that this woman was just another in a string of women that John was trustful of. And they did him in. They basically put a stake in his heart. He trusted his first wife that, you know, she was this kind, goodly person, even though it was an arranged marriage. And she would not do him wrong. And even before that, a girlfriend broke up with him when he was in Vietnam. But of course it didn't send him. But he did start drinking heavily. Very heavily. He said after that he was just more or less the biggest drunk anybody had ever seen or cared to. Then he got hooked up with this Malay woman. And she was pregnant, and the con got her. And his unit witnessed them torture her, and they cut the baby out of her, and it fell on the floor in front of him. Well, they were up a ways, but then after that he just went berserk on them. I don't know, I guess she was a spy. Or they thought she was a spy. He must have thought she was okay enough, right? Okay, then Nancy comes along. And they do him that way. Come up with some plot. Plot number 2. Plot number 1 was for the first one to get pregnant. And I kind of got the impression she just needed to give the appearance that they had had sex. And she was actually pregnant by somebody else. But she was going to let John take the blame for it, knowing full good and well that he didn't want another child. Nothing against children per se. He was just already working 2 jobs. One of them was with the Michigan State Park, because at the time they were in Michigan. He worked fire tower, and he had a chain gang. Plotted on him. I do, the more I think about that, because I thought of that the other day too. She just wanted to get knocked up. She got someone else to do it, and they were going to blame him. Well, his name's on her birth certificate. There's nothing I don't guess he can do about that now. He's in his 70s, man. He was born in 1947. I was born in 1963, why did I say that? Wow. 1961. Crazy stuff. Then plot number 2 by those two. And the mother, her mother was involved in that too. That if she left him, she would buy her a new car and a new wardrobe. She lived in Kansas City in a mansion. There's so many mansions in Kansas City anyway. Excuse me. But they were more or less taking a hit out on him. And then comes Marge, and she does the flooding while he's vulnerable and really trying to do something right. You know, he really, 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 really wanted to be a good husband. He said, okay, I'm going to go for therapy. And went to try to gain info on how to keep it together. Guess the thought never occurred to him to pick up a book, but didn't have internet. Now see here, this is rolling into 15 minutes again already. So, I'm not going to be the one that does him wrong, just because this whole bandwagon of other ones did. I don't have to be that way. I wasn't raised to be a hellion like that, and a gold digger, and, you know, I pretty much was raised to take it how it comes.